Ladies and gentlemen, we are witnessing a breaking headline moment in professional sports. The Women's National Basketball Association is facing an unprecedented crisis that could fundamentally reshape the entire league. Right now, at this very moment, there is explosive speculation that the WNBA may be forced to move forward without its veteran players, potentially starting the 2026 season with replacement rosters. This isn't some distant possibility or theoretical discussion. This is happening now. The veteran players are reportedly holding up critical negotiations, refusing to budge on revenue-sharing demands that insiders say are completely unrealistic. Multiple agents representing some of the league's biggest stars have begun speaking directly with team owners and the Women's Basketball Players Association, expressing frustration over the communication breakdown. The deadline is March 10th. That's not months away, that's days. And the entire future of professional women's basketball in America hangs in the balance. What we're looking at is a potential lockout scenario, a work stoppage, and the very real possibility that the league could implement replacement players to salvage the season. This is not a drill. This is a full-blown labor crisis, and the shockwaves are reverberating through every corner of the sports world right now. Let's be absolutely clear about what's driving this catastrophic breakdown.
Angel.
All right, let's get into it, man.
WNBA, CBA negotiations. We are less than 3 months away from the alleged May 8th start of the WNBA season and tip-off, and there's still no new deal. But there is new information, and one thing we love is the tea.
The tea.
No, but for real, no, the newest news is actually really eye-opening. Mm-hmm. We recently found out that in 2025, the WNBA generated enough revenue to trigger revenue sharing with its players. This is the first time that's ever happened. There hasn't been enough money made or revenue made in order for them to have a revenue sharing model even triggered. And this is the first time that's happened. $8 million was given to 13 teams to disperse amongst its players, so the 13 teams that played last season. And this is a great quote from Brianna Turner, who's a WNBPA treasurer. She told ESPN, "This shows our value and how what we're fighting for makes sense and how we should keep fighting." And I think so that's absolutely spot on. This is a really large indicator that, for some of the propaganda that the players were being greedy and they were trying to take from a pot that wasn't there. This is very real news that the league and its financials are trending up. So far, what we've heard from the league, you'd have to take their word for it, right? Like that there isn't money made because the league has never shown their financial books. They have not shown the evidence of claims like that. And obviously, when you're in a CBA negotiation, information is really important, Angel. And so when you don't have like the financials to actually look at and you're being given damning information without any evidence and you just have to take it as what it is, it can create distrust because of a lack of transparency. And Angel, you as a player in the WNBA and having played all these years, like, how much of an issue has that lack of transparency been for you?
It's been a big issue. First of all, the players have been standing their ground and the players have been right this whole time. In order for the WNBA to save this league right now, you have to open the books. Let me repeat, open the books. What's the big deal? Guess what? You open the books and we're wrong. Okay, you know what? Sorry, WNBA, we were wrong. We'll take it back. We'll shut our mouths. We'll go play. We'll do everything you ask. So why not open the books?
The league called the recent proposal unrealistic and it could lead to hundreds of millions of dollars of losses for our teams. But again, we're finding out that a lot of things are trending up. So it's not, the stories don't all line up and make sense. Like, we're constantly getting new information about attendance records being set around WNBA, team expansion fees. Geez Louise. Billionaires are fighting for a chance to bring a WNBA team to their cities for $250 million price tags, $300 million price tags. This is real money coming in. Plus, I didn't even mention marketing and sponsorship coming in. Here's where we come back to the pie. Is it gross or is it net revenue? What we're seeing is that there's an issue in agreement, not only on the slice of pie, But what the pie even is? Like, are y'all having apple pie or are y'all having pumpkin pie? Because these are two completely different pies.
Yeah.
The pie the players are talking about is gross revenue, which is the total money a business makes. They want 27 to 30% of that. And the players have been in negotiations willing to come down on that percentage. Now, the league is standing firm on net revenue, which is
Guys, they have not come down. They went down 1.5%, bro. They went from 27.5 to 26.
money after expenses like charter planes, arenas, hotels, security, operating costs. So that number is much smaller. That pie is much smaller to even take a slice out of. And they're standing firm on that 70% of net revenue. You know, something else that's looking funny in the light too, other major professional leagues, NFL, NBA,
Yeah.
NHL.
Let's go through it.
Like all of them are using that gross model. So
Yeah.
they're starting from a much bigger pie and giving up much bigger slices of that pie than the WNBA is.
According to multiple agents who have been in direct contact with both league officials and union representatives, the core issue is revenue sharing, specifically how individual player marketability translates into compensation. Several agents, including representatives for superstar rookies like Caitlin Clark, have pointed out a fundamental economic reality that the Players Association seems unwilling to acknowledge. Not all players drive revenue equally. Not all players generate the same merchandise sales, television ratings, or social media engagement. Caitlin Clark trading cards sell for significantly more money than cards featuring veteran players. Angel Reese merchandise moves units at a completely different scale than products featuring journeyman players. This isn't opinion. This is documented market data. These are verifiable sales figures. These are concrete Nielsen ratings. These are measurable social media analytics. The marketplace has spoken with absolute clarity. Certain players bring exponential value to the league, while others contribute at a more modest level. But here's where the conflict becomes explosive. The Players Association has reportedly been treating group licensing agreements as a mandatory prerequisite for joining the union upon entering the league. What this means in practical terms is that rookie sensations who are individually driving massive revenue increases are being forced into collective bargaining structures that distribute their market value across the entire player pool. Agents representing these high-value clients are pushing back hard, demanding more transparency from the union about how these agreements are structured, how revenue is allocated, and why players with vastly different market appeal should be compensated under identical formulas. Two separate legal experts consulted by sports media outlets have confirmed that these factors are legitimate points of negotiation and that the union's current stance may not be legally sustainable if challenged in court. This isn't just about money. This is about fairness. This is about recognition. This is about allowing market forces to properly reward the players who are actually filling arenas, driving television contracts, and bringing new audiences to women's professional basketball. ESPN insider Alexa Philippou broke crucial details on this story, revealing that agents have been discussing these issues behind the scenes for months. This didn't suddenly emerge in the past week. This has been building, simmering, intensifying throughout the entire off-season. Agents have been trying to facilitate communication between their clients and the union. They've been attempting to broker compromise. They've been working overtime to prevent exactly the scenario we're now facing. But according to sources close to the negotiations, there's a clear generational divide within the player ranks. The veteran players, those who have been in the league for years, are demanding revenue-sharing structures that would significantly benefit them at the expense of the new generation of stars who are actually responsible for the league's recent growth explosion. These veteran players want guaranteed increases. They want automatic escalators. They want compensation structures that ignore individual market value and treat all players as equally valuable to the league's commercial success. and they're willing to risk everything to get it. Behind closed doors, agents are reportedly discussing contingency plans. They're exploring alternative scenarios. They're gaming out what happens if negotiations completely collapse. Among the strategic discussions currently taking place is whether it would be better for players to force the league to lock them out rather than initiate a strike themselves. This distinction might seem technical, but it carries enormous implications. If the players strike, they lose access to certain benefits, insurance coverages, and contractual protections. If the league locks them out, those benefits potentially remain in place while the work stoppage continues. This is high-level strategic maneuvering. This is the kind of tactical positioning that happens when both sides are preparing for total war rather than compromise. And here's where things get truly unprecedented. There is genuine discussion within league circles about the possibility of using replacement players. Think about what that means. Think about the historical parallels. The National Football League used replacement players during the 1987 strike. Major League Baseball nearly did the same in the mid-90s. These are nuclear options. These are scenarios that fundamentally alter the relationship between leagues and their player associations, sometimes permanently. But sources indicate that team owners and league officials are seriously considering this approach because they believe the current negotiating position of the veteran players is completely untenable. They believe these veterans are overestimating their leverage. They believe the league has grown not because of the veterans, but despite them. They believe the future of the WNBA rests with the new generation of marketable stars, and they're prepared to move forward with or without the players who are currently holding up the process. Consider the broader context of what's happening in women's professional sports right now. The WNBA has experienced unprecedented growth over the past 2 seasons. Television ratings have increased dramatically. Merchandise sales have exploded. Social media engagement has reached levels previously unimaginable for women's basketball. And this growth has been driven almost entirely by a handful of specific players. Caitlin Clark's college career brought mainstream attention to women's basketball that the sport had never previously achieved. Her transition to the professional ranks carried that audience with her. Angel Reese brought a different demographic, a different energy, a different marketing appeal that expanded the league's reach even further. These players are not incrementally more valuable than their veteran counterparts. They are exponentially more valuable. They represent a categorical difference in commercial appeal, and their agents are rightfully arguing that compensation structures should reflect this reality. But the veteran players see things differently. They've been grinding in this league for years, while salaries remained stagnant and public attention was minimal. They played in empty arenas. They took second jobs in the offseason. They endured conditions that would be unthinkable in men's professional sports. And now, just as the league is finally experiencing commercial success, they're being told that this success belongs primarily to the rookies, that the growth should be credited to the new generation, that compensation should be individualized rather than collectively shared. From their perspective, this feels like betrayal. This feels like the league is abandoning the players who sustained it through the lean years just as prosperity finally arrives. They believe they've earned the right to benefit from the league's growth regardless of their individual market value. They believe solidarity demands equal sharing of the increased revenue, and they're willing to risk the entire season to make that point. The March 10th deadline is not arbitrary. This date was established as the point of no return for finalizing a collective bargaining agreement that would govern league operations for the next several seasons. If no deal is reached by this deadline, the existing agreement expires and the league enters uncharted legal territory. Team owners could implement a lockout, preventing players from participating in any league activities. Players could initiate a strike, refusing to play under the expired agreement terms. Or the league could attempt to proceed with replacement players, bringing in athletes from overseas leagues, recent college graduates who went undrafted, or players from developmental leagues to fill rosters and maintain the season schedule. Each of these scenarios carries massive risks. Each would generate enormous public relations challenges. Each could permanently damage the league's credibility and commercial momentum. But here's what makes this situation even more volatile. The agents representing the league's most marketable players have options that previous generations never had. International leagues are actively recruiting American talent with competitive salary offers. Alternative domestic leagues have been proposed by private investors looking to capitalize on the WNBA's current dysfunction. Individual players with sufficient market appeal could potentially negotiate exhibition tours, barnstorming arrangements, or content deals that would generate income outside traditional league structures. The leverage dynamics have shifted. The veteran players are acting as though they hold all the cards, as though the league cannot function without them, as though their collective action can force ownership to capitulate. But the reality may be quite different. The reality may be that the league's recent success has created alternative pathways for its most valuable assets, pathways that don't require veteran approval or union solidarity. Agents have been increasingly vocal about demanding transparency from the Players Association regarding how group licensing agreements function, how revenue is allocated, and how decisions are made within the union structure. Several agents have publicly stated that their clients feel uninformed about critical aspects of the negotiations. They claim the union leadership is dominated by veteran players who are prioritizing their own interests over the collective good. They suggest that voting procedures within the union may not adequately represent the preferences of younger players who constitute an increasingly large portion of the membership. These are serious allegations. These are claims that strike at the fundamental legitimacy of the union's negotiating authority. If a significant portion of the player population believes their representation is not actually representing their interests, the entire collective bargaining structure becomes unstable. The current state of affairs represents a critical inflection point, not just for the WNBA, but for women's professional sports generally. How this conflict resolves will establish precedents that affect labor relations across multiple leagues and potentially multiple sports. If the veteran players succeed in forcing a revenue-sharing structure that ignores individual market value, it will embolden similar efforts in other contexts. If the league successfully implements a more individualized compensation model that rewards marketability and commercial impact, it will shift how women athletes are valued and paid across the entire sports landscape. If replacement players are used, it will demonstrate that even in a moment of unprecedented growth and public attention, women athletes still lack the leverage that their male counterparts take for granted. Every possible outcome carries implications that extend far beyond basketball, far beyond this particular season, far beyond these specific negotiations. What happens next? Based on the information currently available,